Okay.
Okay, so my name is Kentress Davison or Dr. Kentress Davison, and I started Dr.
Mhm.
Hood March of last year, just trying to get more people to understand what clinical research is. You know, in your experience, you may notice that some people are apprehensive about clinical research, especially participating in it because the negative connotation that it has or healthcare altogether, especially I'm African American, so I'm from Alabama. I currently live in Alabama, and I know the stigma that plagues us is the Tuskegee experiment. So when I started out as a study
Mhm.
coordinator, trying to get people to participate in clinical research was somewhat challenging. And, unless they maybe had a financial situation or the compensation was appealing to them. I did diabetes research. Um, and I did it for nearly 10 years, 2 months short of 10 years before I was able to transition into the CRA role. And I think that became possible, outside of God, because of the COVID situation. A lot of CRAs were laid off or displaced because they were not allowed to come on sites during the pandemic. And then when things started getting better, okay, it was like a rush that, we need to replace our
Mhm.
CRAs back. And so I was able to get on with IQVIA initially, and now with the company that I am today. So I wasn't very active on LinkedIn
Mhm.
before I decided to start Dr. Hood, which is an acronym for helping others overcome determinants. And I got that from not only the
That's
public
nice.
health aspect of my education,
Yeah.
but just seeing so many people say, "Hey, I can't get in," I can't get into clinical research. It's like this gatekeeping field for some reason
Mhm.
that people were struggling to get into. And I myself, after acquiring a biology degree, it took me 3 years to be a study coordinator and 3 years of actively applying before I was ever able to be a CRA. So that's why I said, I think the pandemic shortage had something to do with it. Um, and so I just wanted to, people have reached out, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? And
Yeah.
I've tried to discuss with some people because the initial 30-minute consultation is free. And, once I get
Mhm.
beyond that, I haven't heard too much from people, like, whether or not
Yeah.
they got a role or what didn't want to go beyond the free consultation for some. Now I have helped six individuals. Well, one is not in research. She did get a job, but it wasn't research. But she had been
Mhm.
out of work for so long, she was glad to have that role. I think she went back into the lab, which was her initial industry that she was in. And then I was
Mhm.
also surprised when I became a CRA of how many physicians are study coordinators or
Yes.
CRAs because they have
Yes.
gotten their degree in
They're
another country.
pharmacies as well,
Oh yeah,
too.
and
You have
pharmacists.
pharmacies who are
Uh-huh.
coordinators.
They've gotten
Mhm.
their degree in other countries. And not so much the
Mhm.
pharmacists. They just
Mhm.
decided to be a CRA, but they've gotten their
Mhm.
degrees here in the United States. But I didn't realize how many MDs have gotten their degrees in other countries are now
Other
study
countries,
coordinators
right? Yes,
or
that is true.
CRAs. So that was
An
mind-boggling to me.
eye-opener. Yeah.
I always wonder, how do they feel? Like, do are they
Mhm.
must have a great passion for the industry, but I wanted to know, how does that weigh on you psychologically to know that you have completed the necessary steps to become a physician, and now you are a CRA. So that might be one open discussion I can talk about in the
Yeah.
future. Okay, well, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm Tanya Ville. I am currently working as a clinical trial manager for a pharma company. I actually started off in preclinical research. I have my degree, my undergrad degree in biochemistry, and I just had a passion for research, and I just kind of landed in the lab initially. So you could say I was doing a lot of preclinical research. Did that for about 10 years. I worked in the CNS disorders. And then at one point I was laid off after, my time at the companies. And at that point I said, you know what, I need to get into clinical research. Why not? Why go back into preclinical? Because it gave me a little more flexibility. Um, work wise. I could, do stuff at home. I don't have to go into the office all the time. And if I do, I'm not tied into the timelines that surround being in a lab. Let's just say that. And I actually had to go backwards a bit because I didn't have any clinical research as much as I had a preclinical research. So I took a pay cut and I started off in a clinic, consenting patients, etc. And then I just kind of made my way and just transitioned and moved according to my goal, which was again to do more clinical trial studies. And I did that. I think it took me another 5 years or so. I took on a contract job at Merck, and that kind of put me into the pharma piece of it. And then I moved on from there and got a role as a clinical study manager at another farm, but I wasn't. I was doing more of a clinical trial. I was managing clinical trials, not just overseeing research itself. Yeah, and so that's my journey basically. So I
You find
understand
it difficult to transition.
it was very difficult to transition from preclinical, yeah, to clinical. Like I said, I took a pay cut. Yeah, I took a pay cut and went a step back, and started off as like a research associate in a clinic, and then
Mm-hmm.
I went to, which is also tied to the academic
Mm-hmm.
piece, yeah, facility, and yeah, and then I just kind of moved on. I went to a hospital afterwards, and after the hospital, I went to almost like a CRO, but I did contracting there, and I did a lot of move just because of what I was trying to attain.
Accomplish. Hmm.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
that
I was going
time.
to ask
So
you. So since
yes,
you
I
worked
definitely
for us,
understand people how they feel. It wasn't much. I think I've heard a lot of people, yeah, their their qualm is trying to either get into pharma, right? They either trying to get out of lab and into clinical trials, or they're trying to get out of academia and get into
hmm
pharma.
hmm and then
So
and it's that catch 22 because you have the underlying background and the understanding, but they want you to
yeah,
have experience. But if no one is
yeah,
going to give me that first
yeah, opportunity.
opportunity, then how can
Hmm.
I get experience? So that's basically the same song that everybody that I have encountered, and they got the accolades. That they've done bench research. They some even have masters in biomedicine or chemistry, or like I said, some pharmacists, but they was like, but we just can't get into research. And so hopefully, CROs that may listen to this once I post it, or pharmaceutical
Hmm.
companies, or even the talent requisition people, they can start giving those individuals a chance. Because if you're gonna just keep swapping out the same people that's in the industry, you're not gonna get
Hmm.
new ideas. You're not gonna get different mindsets. You're just working with the same people, and they're just going from one company to the next based on who is offering what they need at the time. But I noticed um that the opportunities are lacking right now. Now, it does seem like there has been an influx of jobs being posted at the beginning of this year, and I have noticed that. I don't know how much of them are legitimate, because unfortunately we've
Yeah.
seen that people indicate that the jobs being posted on LinkedIn are not always a true job, and that's unfortunate because when you and I've had even some friends that go to the point where they have done like a company will say, we're so overwhelmed that we're not doing the initial Zoom interview or the phone call interview. Here's a set of questions. And if you answer these questions, we can kind of get a feel if you'll go to the next level. They answer these questions and then they be like, oh, your responses are so great. We actually want to offer you the role, but all we need is your social, your this, your that, so we can
Mm.
put you in the system. Never talk to anybody. And it's a scam. And it's so unfortunate because it's people who've been without work for months and they're
Right.
so desperate to receive a job. And I just hope that they know not to give out that information if it's not a legitimate company or
Or
person that they
position.
have talked to. But it's so sad. So my ultimate goal is to be an auditor or a person
Mm.
over quality. So I've been a
Okay.
CRA since October 2021. I became a senior CRA in October of 2024. And so
Mhm.
I want to be an auditor. And if that doesn't
Okay.
work out, or if I decide to go back to the site level, I want to be a director of research, but focusing on quality. So, because another thing I've noticed from going to site, no, everybody's skill set is not the same. Everybody has
Mm-hmm.
not been in research the same amount of hours. So
Right.
documentation lessons are something that I noticed that we have to do a lot of re-educating on how to document GCP practices, our core.
Mm-hmm.
People will have their paper source and you'll be like, okay, well, you forgot to um you're answering questions in EDC, but they're not on your original source. Like obviously
Right.
it's no. Like for example, has the patient had any concomitant procedures or visit their primary care or any medical facility since their last visit, and you're marking in the EDC no. So the assumption is that you asked them and they said no, but that's not how research works. You have to have that original source that say you asked that question, and it's not and you transcribe what the original source is in EDC. So I want people to watch the little videos that I on these type of lessons that I put on the social media platforms to
Mm-hmm.
minimize these errors. Especially if you're a study coordinator now, you want to get into becoming a CRA. Now you're learning what to
Mm-hmm.
look for.
Yeah.
Um, um, like you mentioned your role as a clinical research manager, and we have a group of those that work for the sponsor that helps us out. And
Mm-hmm.
I recently was attached to an email to one of my sites where there were a few missing pages, or they're not realizing if the patient is not continuing to the next visit, then you have to go back in and update that to no for whatever reason, lost the follow up or it's no longer applicable because now the
Mm-hmm.
system is populating the next page and assuming that you haven't complete those pages. So little nuances like that I like to make sure people got a good understanding on to minimize y'all work, so you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
send that long list of, hey, you got, 10 missing pages when eight of them don't even supposed to be considered missing because they just didn't go back in and update that yes to no.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people want to get into clinical research, but they don't understand that, you know, having that background as a patient care tech or a nurse or a study coordinator is great. But and I think you have a little better understanding when you transition from the site to a CRO when you have that background. But you got to understand just because you know how it is done on the site level doesn't automatically mean you know everything about becoming a CRA. It is a
Right.
continuous learning process.
Yes, I agree.
And I think a lot of people also get stuck of comparing themselves to other people. You know, I've
Mhm.
co-monitored with some junior CRAs, and then you know they didn't catch something that maybe has been going on for months, and I
Mhm.
tell them, you know, we've all made this mistake. These kind of small things, and they weren't protocol deviations or anything like that, but like these small things you're not gonna always catch in the beginning. This comes with experience. So don't compare your level of experience with somebody who's been in the game 20 years,
Right.
because you're just not going to have the same level of experience. But don't take the advice or the instructions offensively. And I've learned
Mhm.
some things from people um, like with our SAE system, you know, normally
Mhm.
you report, you know, SAEs in the EDC system. And of course, if it's down, they got an email for you to send that paperwork to. But apparently, sometimes sites were getting queried to send redacted medical records to that email, you know, depending on, I'm assuming if the investigator felt like the SAE was related to the investigation of product. And I didn't know anything
Mhm.
about that process. I was like, I thought, you know, we just make sure that the medical records were on site and then
Mhm.
all AEs or SAEs were captured, including their concomitant meds and procedures. And I was like, you know, and I let them know, okay, you taught me something, because I didn't even know that that was even an aspect for this study. So we all can learn from each other.
Mhm.
And senior CRAs can learn from junior CRAs, and junior CRAs can learn from senior CRAs. We all
Right.
one team. Um, and again, that is why I try to create this platform and this LLC, because I want to get the younger people in, because
Mhm.
um, I don't know if you have to travel, but the traffic can get overwhelming.
No, I don't have to travel to
Being
help
stuck in being
you.
stuck in airports for 9 to 10
Yeah.
hours, 4 over layovers, and then you still get delayed. You know, I don't. Some people enjoy it, but you know,
Right.
I want to get a position where I travel less within the next 3 or 4 years, and then those fresh out of college or fresh out of grad school, that experience
Mhm.
would be perfect for them. So we got to I think we need to stop gatekeeping clinical research and make it more accessible. And another thing I'm trying to do, a lot of our local high schools have a healthcare professions track that I think if
Mhm.
the students take it for 3 years, they can take the test to become certified medical assistants or certified trainers, like trainer assistants.
Mhm.
And so I've spoken twice to one of the high schools, different semesters. And, you know, just like I was when I was in high school, I didn't even know about this industry. I didn't
Right.
even know
Yeah.
about the reason why
Mhm.
I got into clinical research, because I was pre-med, and I had heard that the director over admissions liked individuals had a research background. And so my
Mhm.
plan initially was, because I didn't feel like my undergrad GPA was competitive, I was going to try to
Mhm.
get my master's in something else to make have a competitive GPA, and try to
Mhm.
break into research. But then again, it took me 3 years, so it got me discouraged. But then when I finally got the role, and I started seeing the patients and going over their medical history, and I was able to give them the investigative product, and I was like, oh, I can give them the medicine too. You know, that kind of intrigued me, and so I went. So I first became a certified medical assistant, because I had some limitations, like some of our growth hormone shot studies I couldn't give because I wasn't a nurse or a CMA. So I took the test for that, was able to
Mhm.
do that, and then I went into because I knew eventually I wanted to become some type of manager. I got my master's in clinical research administration, and then a doctorate in public health. So
Mhm.
I just hope, the ones that's watching this video understand that this is a hard industry to get into, but still have your underlining education, which is they prefer life science degrees, something in medicine. If you can get onto a site and become a study coordinator, or get into a hospital or clinic and become a medical assistant, you still get in that understanding of consenting, because a lot of procedures the patients have to consent before you're able to do the procedure. You're learning how to talk to patients. You're developing, excuse me, relationships with physicians. All that
Yeah.
will be beneficial to you if you want to get into clinical research. Take a class in the clinical research administration track that'll help you understand why people say, well, why does medicine cost so much? But they don't understand it. A portion of that is because of clinical research. Pharmaceutical company has only 20 years to patent, where they own a patent to a drug, and in that 20 years they have to do their clinical research, get it to market, and try to recruit all the money that they spent in that in those clinical trials. And then after 20 years, the Me Too companies, or what we call our generic drug companies, they can come in and make the same medication, and they don't have the expense of the clinical research because you've already done it. And so, and then not to mention the clinical research that they try to present to the FDA that don't get approved. So that 2 and 3 and 4 million dollars that they spent trying to get that medicine out, if it didn't get approved, you can say to a certain degree that they lost it. And another thing that I try to drive to CRAs and to the sites, you know, we don't want to prove that the drug worked if it really is not working. That's not the goal of clinical research.
Mhm.
The goal of clinical research is to prove whether it works. And
Mhm.
so make sure you're asking about those adverse events. Get as much details as you can. We got to make sure we don't let the participants be so blinded by, oh, I'm feeling better, or whatever their goal was. So if their goal was to lower their A1C, okay, my A1C is lowering. I've never been this low before. Okay, but I'm dizzy, or I keep
Mhm.
getting headaches or stomach ache, whatever the case may be. We got to make sure that we are asking those important questions. So what's your ultimate goal? Do you
Oh, I
want
have
to?
so many goals. Well, my ultimate goal in my own career is just be more experienced and knowledgeable as within a CTM role.
Okay.
Um, I'm okay
Okay.
staying in a role as I am right now. I just want to have just more experience, maybe more how do you say it, like project led type of um opportunity. So within my role, maybe I'm dedicated to a particular initiative, right? So which just gives me more exposure to different aspects of how I could support people in clinical research. So I say that because as I'm listening to you too, I mean, there's some I could see. I'm not quite sure how you've shared this information if it's only through videos, but I could see you, for example, I am a treasurer for the ACRP New Jersey chapter. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with ACRP. It's the Association of Clinical Research Professionals.
Yeah.
And they have different chapters right across the US, basically. There's probably one if you're in Alabama, there might be one in Alabama or close
Or
to
Georgia.
in Georgia. Okay, you're in
That's probably.
Georgia.
No, I'm in Alabama, but I'm saying if it's not in Alabama, I'm sure Georgia
Oh,
has
Georgia. Yeah,
it.
yes. I'm I'm pretty sure too. And from time to time we'll have speakers again, I'm just honing into what I'm hearing from you because you have really what you're saying is absolutely true. And we do at least Jersey, but other chapters do promote like speakers to give a talk on different aspects of research.
Hmm.
And like I said, for Jersey especially, it doesn't have to be in person. Obviously, most of our talks are virtual. For Jersey, this is something that's like hot topic is how do people are looking for like recruiters, they're looking for resources on how to move ahead in their career.
Hmm.
Whether they're starting from they're new to research because again, ACRP does offer certification.
Hmm.
So they'll join ACRP for the certification so they could have, the accolade to say, listen, I can show you I have some proof of exposure to research. So we try to promote all of that. And then right now we're in that space of, okay, now they're starting off. How do they move ahead? Can we get recruiters on board? To who can we talk to, right? And I see you having that I think people would be very much interested into hearing what you have to say, especially at your level,
Appreciate
um,
that.
and where you've come from, right? Your background, your journey, basically. So I'm also so I told you about my own personal goal in my
Hmm.
own career, but being a part of the ACRP and I know the community, I think you'd be very valuable to them in that aspect. Like we've had speakers who are very, very much they may work with FDA. So
Hmm.
they'll come on board and they'll talk about certain aspects of what the FDA requirements mean, right? Or we might have a speaker who's knowledgeable in AI. So we seek out these people and we ask them to present for like 45 minutes. And it's open to everyone, every it's open to and everyone who are ACRP members, not just for New Jersey, but across the entire US,
Okay.
or anybody who's not ACRP who is interested, it just depends on how you promote it. So yeah, I think people would find it worthwhile. If you were physically here, if you're physically in Jersey, I'd say I'd say let's bring you on to one of our events and because we do try to do sponsorship as well.
But are they not willing to, to pay for their speakers
Like
travel?
travel. I
Hmm.
don't we're not big enough to do the travel, but travel is we're not big enough to do travel, the Jersey chapter. Now there is the global ACRP and they have a conference. We have a conference. There's a conference every year for global ACRP. Um, I would say we have a competitor, which is you don't have to say we're a competitor, but SOCRA
Yeah,
is
I
also an
know.
association, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
So
He's
ACRP
actually a
offers
part of
certification,
your
SOCRA does the same.
organization where I was doing the monthly fees, and that was
Uh-huh.
like one of my strategies. Was like, well, maybe I can be a CRA if they see I'm associated with this. But I never took. I couldn't. I was hoping that my hospital that I was working for would pay for the exam, and I think
Right.
they weren't willing to. So I was like,
Okay.
okay. So I just
Yeah.
dropped the monthly membership. Um, but yeah, but I think if we talking about like maybe in the summer, I actually have enough travel points to do it now. But
Mhm.
my current assignment is not probably going to let me do it. But I'll be
Yeah.
willing to because it'll give me exposure, give me the experience, and I'm not coming out of pocket. I have enough points that I could fly to Jersey, probably enough Hilton points where I can stay one night, and so I would love to do it.
Right. And the other, like I said, the other part could be remote because a lot of our we don't get the global ACRP is in person.
Hmm.
I don't think there's an option for remotes, but that's a conference that happens once a year. I'm not going because it's expensive and they have their own vetting. They have their own vetting process in terms of who they have as speakers. They probably do it early on. I haven't looked into that to see how people kind of get on board if you pay for your own spot at the conference or not. But that's one piece. The other piece, as I mentioned, it can be virtual because all our all our webinars or are virtual.
Okay.
So
Well, I
it's
would love
not
to
that
do
you
it.
would need to travel, but not that it wouldn't. That's one. The webinars. Then we have like webinars slash educational events, right? That's what they call
Mhm.
it. We call it because people are providing valuable feedback about research in
Okay.
whichever capacity. And then we also have our social events. So we have educational events, which are could be which are remote, and then we have our in person. We try to do like two or four, between 2 to 4 per year. Um, Two specifically are more, um, how should you say it? Two are definitive, like we have a holiday party at like a December holiday party, and we have a summer social, and those we'll try to bring recruiters. We only have one recruiter as a sponsor right now. We'll bring recruiters in um, or any other person whoever wants to sponsor the event, things like that. So in your case, any of those could work, but what I see currently is like say an educational event because I think people would want to
Mhm.
hear what you have to say about
Okay.
transitioning.
Yeah, if you you
Yeah.
just keep my information and we can continue to, correspond. And
Yeah.
I would definitely love, especially if it's virtual, that makes it even more accessible and the opportunity more feasible. So I would definitely would love to talk. And like I said, I'm gonna get a
Okay.
little bit better about, posing these open discussions because I would like the talent people to come in, HR person to come
Right.
in. I would like them to because we are on the outside looking in. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We look at it as why are you all are not giving us a chance? That's what the feedback is from the people seeking jobs, or why we keep
Mhm.
getting ghosted, but maybe they
Right.
can explain what is going on. A lot of organizations are now saying that they don't even read the first round of interviews. It's going through an AI system and they're looking for
Yes.
targeted words. And then those people
Mhm.
are prompt to them. And so
Mhm.
even even with my experience, when I first became a CRA, I would say, and then the guy told us when we did our onboarding system, he's like about 6 months in, when they notice you've been a CRA for about 6 months, your your job inbox is gonna be flooded with recruiters. And it was. I was very shocked. Um, and I would say, I haven't been here for a year. I would like to get a year experience in before I move, whatever the case was. I would say the first 2 years, it was somebody in my, excuse me, inbox at least every 3 months. And after 2023,
Mhm.
crickets. And that was around the
Wow.
same time I started noticing people saying that they were getting laid off and they having a hard time getting to another
Right.
CRO or another pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
me, I have children, and so I can't imagine not going without work that long. But I also wondered, were these individuals willing to go back to the site level or go back to the lab level, or
Yeah.
or were those jobs even not obtainable? Because I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine
Sorry.
2 years without working.
Yeah, I know,
Okay,
I
so
understand. Sorry about that. I was also babysitting, so
oh, you're fine. You're fine.
nothing
Like I said,
happened.
I'm glad this dialogue was able to take place because now we've learned from each other. Now I might have an
Yeah.
opportunity to speak. So
Well,
I'm very
yeah.
I'm
You know,
very
I
appreciative.
think like a panelist would be nice if we get like you and a recruiter. We
Yeah.
try to have a moderator and just have a dialogue. I think people would and have the open discussion with the attendees. I mean, that's my thought right now. I think that would be great.
Yeah, and so if you
Mhm.
know anyone in those roles, I plan to do one every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Look like this
Okay.
time might be beneficial
Okay.
into the until I think the flag football. Okay, yeah, because the school football season is during the week. And so yeah, so every 2 weeks, if you can, encourage someone in your role, someone from your
Mhm,
LinkedIn profile to join us,
mhm,
the more people we talk
mhm,
to, we can I'm gonna stop sharing. The more people we talk
mhm.
to, the better I think it would be, and it'll eventually grow. And then the last thing, just like like was just on the screen, was just the icebreaker. Were you all affected by the weather with the East Coast and South, the snowstorms?
Yeah, we yeah, we were. I don't know how many inches we had here in Jersey, but I probably had 8 in my neighborhood, in my town, 8 inches, maybe a little bit more. I mean, the good thing for me, well, when you say
You're
affected, you're
kind of
talking about
used
me
to it.
personally,
No,
or
no, yeah. I mean, if you're in
or like
Jersey, you're probably used
just
to
getting to
it.
work and things like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we're
'Cause-
in Alabama, so and we didn't even get the snow. We just got a bunch of rain, and right now they're threatening snow flurries later on tonight. But the wind is
yeah.
up to 35 miles per hour, and so